Hey guys, welcome to the Ammo Training Academy 200 series where we're going to be focusing on paint correction. Now, in the previous series 100, we focused on cleaning and protecting your paint. Now we're really going to take that deep dive and talk about what happens when you put the pad polish and machine on your paint. Now, before we get started, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. This is not a normal YouTube video, in 5, 10, 15 minutes. These are going to be a bit longer. We're going to be conversational. I'm in a classroom style with Kevin Brown in California. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I want you to know what I was thinking about when I created the ATA series as a whole. A couple years ago on a podcast, I posed the question, hey, if you had to detail a Pebble Beach car the next day, but you couldn't do it with a regular detail, like a trained detailer, you had to grab somebody off the street who was total novice, and you had 5 or 6 hours to teach them the core fundamentals, the most important thing that they could decrease that learning curve and be able to help you on a car, what would you teach them? And so that concept really motivated me, like, man, what is the most important parts of this? So to that, we're gonna talk about and isolate the core building blocks, which I did in these chapters here, and we're gonna arrange them in a specific order, which is 201 all the way to 206, because I think people learn in certain ways, meaning people absorb information verbally or visually or by their ears or tactile, things like that. So with that being said, I did a lot of demos to help kind of demonstrate those core fundamentals. So chapter 201 is really talking about what is paint? What are the characteristics? When you put that pad to the paint, what's going on inside the paint? It'll give you a totally different perspective and help you appreciate what's really going on as the pad and the polish are sort of heating up and abrading the paint, right? 202 is the top 15 types of paint damages. Now we have panels that have some scratches in it, and then behind me on the computer screen, we put pictures of things I've seen over the years. And I think that it will help you understand, like, is this DA haze or are these actual scratches? Are they dust nibs? Things like that. So it'll kind of open your eyes to what's really going on the paint. 203 is the common mistakes and failure points. One of my favorite episodes, meaning if you just avoid this big hole in the ground, you don't jump into it, you don't have to claw your way out, meaning you just walk around it. So just by talking about the failure points, meaning the similarities of really good detailers around the world, if you kind of compile all the mistakes that they made over the years and you say to somebody, hey, just to avoid these mistakes, instantly, bang, you're already up to like 80% proficiency. Does that make sense? So the failure points are kind of a sweet spot for me. I really like that. 204 is the machines, compounds, and polishes. Now we go over what the differences between rotary and DA and things like that. But to me, the compounds and polishes discussion is really exciting because compounds and polishes are basically the same thing. They minimize the paint or level the paint at different rates, meaning compounds do it faster and polishes do it slower. So that, again, that mind shift, that changing in the way that we're thinking about the tools and the polishes will really help you in the future. 205 is proper polishing procedure. We talk about the old way of polishing versus the new way. Very cool. And then finally, 206 is a full detail with a novice. That's a longer episode, an hour or two, where Kevin and I and Meredith, we're working on her red Acura, and we're going through and polishing it, but it's kind of like being a fly on the wall, something I would have loved to have seen 20 years ago with Kevin Brown, just being there and just watching Kevin talk and sort of grab the hand of a novice, and including myself, and say like, hey, do you feel this in the machine? Move the machine this way. Think about it that way. Do you see how it's rotated? all these questions, and then she's asking questions back and forth. And so I think just by standing there with your hands behind your back and just watching him do his thing on a car with a novice, I think is just amazing. So we left that as sort of the finale. So with that being said, without further ado, let's get into the Ammo Training Academy 200 series. And as always, thanks so much for watching. Okay, for episode 201, we're talking about the core essentials, the fundamentals. Before we get started with all the other episodes, we need to kind of just back off a little bit and understand what do we need to know before we start polishing the paint. I think if everybody gets on the same page beforehand, we don't go down some rat hole and you get confused and burn the paint and all these.
Big topic, yeah.
Yeah, big topic. So first question, pretty simple. What is paint?
Well, in the automotive realm, it was originally designed to just protect the panels, to keep metal from rusting, and wood and things like that from oxidizing. So it was a protectant.
When we talked about this before, You said that to me months ago, and I was like, oh my, for some reason, that just like blew me back. I was like, yeah. You're like, yeah, we didn't have any of this polish and stuff. It was literally just to protect. It's sort of like suntan lotion for the paint, if you will.
Right, and it impacts how you think of the car.
Right.
And now we're protecting the protect state.
Right. When I talk to a lot of people, I say, they say, go into all these things about paint. Like, whoa, wait a second. I mean, what are you looking at?
Well, you're looking at,
you know what I mean?
essentially the panel. It can be metal, or a composite. So it can be steel, aluminum, carbon fiber, fiberglass, plastic.
Right. So like if we zoom in, I made some motion graphics.
Body
here.
material.
First we have the body.
Boom.
Primer.
Then we have to prime that, and we want to protect that substrate or that panel, and then we want to put primer so that the next layer can adhere to the panel.
Right.
And the base coat, the color coat. The technology of today, by and large in the automotive realm, is a base coat or a color coat, and we protect that with a final top coat, and that's usually the thickest coat. So planning ahead, saying this is going to take most of the impact, it needs the most protectant, and so in most cases it's a 4-layer system. This is a very malleable and flexible coat.
Right.
So it's not just added protection to protect the base coat from oxidizing and drying and being damaged, but it's malleable.
Right, and as we get into the further, the chapters when we talk about the machines and the history of the machines, a lot of that will, reference this, where it said, oh, back in the day we used to have single stage, we had tools that were more suited for that, let's say.
Right, and that's the key word, is the single stage versus, a 2-stage or a base coat, clear coat.
So we have layers. Yeah. What's the thickness? So we have, a basis.
It's going to vary, and you can think of it in many ways, but in
so
most
this is just
cases,
what is this?
This is one of those
a divider for
protector sheets, and this is
this thickness here.
Not very thick. This, in most cases, is about as thick as the whole entire clear. In general, the clear coat is this is right around 3.3 mils.
Right.
We're
at
claiming
2.8, so
yeah,
we're
this
basically
is on
there.
the thick end of what's on the typical automobile paint system.
Right. So if you think about it from that perspective, if you have this, these little school divider things or whatever, this thickness here is when you're polishing the paint, which we're going to be talking about later. When you're grinding away at that, you're doing that on something that is this thin. So I think when I talk to a lot of people, they don't realize it's this thin. They go like, I mean, they turn white. They go, I'm not gonna touch it. I don't want to do anything to it because it's so thin. And part of me goes, yeah, you're right. There's limited life on this.
It's limited life, but the good news is it's at the same time delicate but durable. So if we don't shock and awe, we don't go in there to try to take everything out. Like, why are we taking this out, Larry? Why are we removing the scratch damage?
Right. That's actually, my next question to you is, what's the purpose of correction? And you were mentioning the accuracy of reflection. Explain.
It's what it's about, because if this surface gets damaged, accuracy of reflection is like looking at a mirror. It's totally flat.
Right.
What you see is what you get. If you look at yourself in the mirror and you get an accurate reflection.
Right. So the sun, let's say, is up here. It's bouncing down and it goes directly into your eye. There's no other things distracting it.
Right.
So
but if that becomes damaged or scratchy, now what would normally have bounced directly off may bounce around or just get
it gets basically, the sun gets trapped in these big V's. So as the light comes down, it bounces in here and it scatters everywhere, as opposed to just going directly in your eye. So us as car people go, wow, that car is not really looking good. It's not as shiny.
And that's what it's about, because this damage, it's not going to continue on its own. It's damage. It's not going to migrate.
Right.
So we truly are just trying to minimize the impact of that damage cosmetically.
Right.
So it's really a cosmetic thing we're trying to achieve, is to bring back the accuracy, reflection, and the gloss. And keep that in mind, because if we take too much off, we overdo it.
It doesn't grow back.
It doesn't come back, and what you were trying to do is make my paint look beautiful and keep it lasting a long time. You've just taken away so much paint by overdoing it that now you have no choice but to actually repaint.
Right. So one of the analogies I've used in, I don't know, a ton of videos in the past is, I call it love marks, right? And a teddy bear, you got your teddy bear and you love your teddy bear and you basically, I just love, and you squeeze it and boom, the head pops off.
Right.
It's kind of that concept here, where you have, you're trying to do the right thing and make your car shiny, but at what cost?
And the uppermost portion is the most critical, because we know from
So right here,
research that
when I was doing this a little earlier, we were talking about that. Explain how this top layer here of the clear coat has UV. What's going on there?
That top coat has ingredients to help fight off
the sun
damage, the effects of the sun.
Basically, put it another way, there's put suntan lotion on the top uppermost part of the clear coat, but as that damage happens in here, and I want to scoop this out. So let's say
And it's integral. It's within the paint. It's not an added layer.
What is it? What is it?
It migrates as the paint is sprayed on and it cures or
and gases out.
Yeah, it migrates to the top. Right.
So basically, what we're saying is, if I want to take this jagged scratch out, so this is in this example, this is going to be a small one. This obviously is a big one. So this is going to be me, as if I was polishing the paint, right? So now I'm going to come in. Here's the top level, brand new paint. I'm going to come in and I'm going to, level this down, right? So I level the paint down and go. Should I go all the way across here like this?
Yeah, you want to take off all that damage you're saying, right?
So this is all
gone.
All gone right now, right?
Yeah.
So now I just removed a little bit of the UV, right? And I removed.
Well, yeah, a lot of the.
Yeah, look at that percentage that I've taken off. So now I come up, and now we're flat, right?
Yeah.
And we'll put this right here.
Right? But a lot of our heavy duty protection is gone.
We were here before, right?
Yeah.
So basically, we just subtracted that amount and we minimize the amount of UV protection.
So this is the area that we're looking at saying, hey, this is causing our accuracy reflection to be affected. Wouldn't it be wiser that if we could minimize the impact or the negative effect of this scratch, instead of taking it away completely and taking all the paint, if we could just eliminate and smooth out this area by polishing? So take away some of that jaggedness.
Right. So essentially, you're sort of doing, I feel like, a little.
You're smoothing it.
You're smoothing it more like.
And that's truly what polishing is to smooth out the damaged areas. Not to necessarily eliminate them, but to minimize the visual impact.
Right.
It's all about the visual impact. It's not about saying, I destroyed those voids. I've taken the paint down. I've defeated the damage. You just caused more damage by taking it.
If you think about it this way, hey, exactly. If you take this all the way down, like I win. It's like, well, did you win the battle, but it seems like you lost the war.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
exactly. And keep in mind, in very fine damage, some of that can be just hidden with a typical a hand applied polish or wax or something like that.
Right.
But we're talking about after you've done that and you still aren't satisfied with the results, then you have no other option but to polish away some of the damage.
Right. So to reiterate here, if you have this void and you don't want to take it out, what Kevin was saying before is a way to sort of put makeup on it. Again, in my analogies, you have pots in your skin and you want to, they put makeup on it and it looks, beautiful, right? You're basically going to put, I don't know, glaze, sealant, wax, whatever you want, and it's going to fill this up. So let's say I wax this whole thing, I waxed, and it fills up this hole. Now, you didn't correct it, you cosmetically, put makeup on it.
It's temporary makeup.
Now, when the sun comes down, it once again bounces, the sun comes down, boom, 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 goes like this, and pops off, and now it looks shiny again.
Yeah, but the thing is, keep in mind that as you polish, if this mimics this,
right,
you're taking away micro layers of that paint.
Right. So the example here is we
now
put tape, and then we put 3 or 4 layers of tape here. And again, when we were doing this, like, how can we show examples so people can feel, taste, touch?
Yeah, the basics. Right?
Yeah. So we put tape here, and as you're polishing,
you're removing micro layers of paint, not literally layers, but just small pieces of paint.
Right, and they peel off.
They're gone forever.
Yeah, you take little layers off.
Yeah.
So here's another, so the first one, of course, is what is paint? What's the purpose of correction, accuracy, reflection? This is one we can kind of go down a rabbit hole, but when we were doing this, I'm saying to myself, what is this core, similarities or differences, or the thing, basically, what did I want to know years ago if I could find out today? You know what I mean? Like, oh man, if I only knew this 20 years ago, I wouldn't have to learn it over the 20 years. So the third one is the characteristics or the behavior of a paint. Now, this is like a ginormous topic.
Mind blower.
But if we go back to over here, the 4 layers. Now we're starting to go down. You're going to see what the next 7 chapters are going to be.
Yeah.
We're going to geek out a little bit here. So if we have these 4 layers, each of these 4 layers is constantly shifting when we're polishing the paint, meaning introducing heat. They're shifting and expanding at different rates at the same time.
And that's not just even just being on the car, being outside, that can occur.
Right. So, and I have a slide for that. Now, if you go outside, the car is sitting out, normal outdoor parking. The temperature goes up. You're going to see here that the metal primer and base are expanding and contracting.
In any direction.
Right. In vertically and as we've learned,
horizontally
at the same time. So this is outdoor parking, right? So then when it cools down, it comes to rest again, okay? Next one, now we do normal polishing. And there's a concept here. Normal polishing, the heat is rising. Again, those 4 layers are individually moving again, or shifting.
They're growing and they're expanding and contracting in tandem, meaning they're staying attached to each other.
Right.
But they are growing at various rates, right? There's different thicknesses, different densities.
Well, these are different materials.
Right, so to assume
sense.
that they're all expanding at the rate of 10% constant is not accurate.
Right.
This is dense, this may be dense too, this is less dense and thinner, this is thicker. You understand where we're going? That they have to be able to expand and contract and stay attached to each other at the same time.
Okay, so I wanted to spend a little bit of time on this one because if I had known this concept 20 years ago, this is literally going to change, and I think this is probably the most important chapter, and one of the most important topics within this chapter is understanding that these are all independently moving at a different rates, and they still have to stick to each other.
We just thought, well, let's get some rubber bands and give an example of it. If this represents at rest.
Imagine this as the paint now.
This is a layer. This is just the top layer, let's say. And then as it heats up, it expands. You see it gets thinner? In this way, in a horizontal, it's getting thinner. It could feasibly go this way too.
Right.
And appear to be thicker or measure as thicker.
Right.
It's the same amount of rubber, so same mass or same quantity, but now we're extending it.
As if I was polishing, go this way again. As if I was polishing on top. I'm polishing, I'm heating up. Look, I'm heating up, it's getting,
it's heating because everything's warming up too. So like you said, in a normal gradual heating, everything heats up, expands and contracts in tandem. Right.
So now if we were to go too much, we're kind of letting the cat out of the bag here, but I think it's important. Too fast, too much heat, polishing. See, wow, you're keep holding that polisher right there. It's getting too hot. These things are going to shift, and they're not going to do it in tandem, right?
Right. You're going to shock it. Essentially, you're going to cause so much expansion of the top layer that its micro mechanical attachment detaches.
Right. So the 4 layers, as they're heating up and heating up, cooling, heating up, cooling. If you do it too fast, too soon, basically they heat up. And as you can see here,
you're going to have some detachment, which we call delamination.
Right.
And now you've got a layer that is still intact for the most part, and it's still attached everywhere else. And it looks great too. It looks, wow, it's beautiful. But we don't know that in this layer it has mechanically shifted or detached, and it's either not completely attached or only partially attached. It doesn't always come to rest like you would think. Oh, I'm going to heat this up. I'm going to get that scratch to move around. Whatever. You have to remember that there is a mechanical micro attachment.
Like, so from here, you were telling me on the phone, you would say this is like little pieces of Velcro.
Exactly.
So
think of it that way.
Yeah. So as you're heating them up and heating up, cooling down,
there's micro attachment area.
If you do that too fast and they go and they don't work in tandem, you basically rip that Velcro and it'll sit kind of like this on the paint, right? It'll be shifted.
Exact. You might not see it for a couple of years or a few years, and I know that we've all seen cars driving down the freeway where you could tell, like, man, that looks kind of cloudy and opaque. I can't really see through that paint. It looks like it mimics buffer trail. That's what happened.
Yeah.
It's very likely looked great that day, that month, that year, and then you started to say, man, it's starting to look a little foggy. Well, it was the day that polishing was overdone, or there was too much heat, too much quick expansion, and it lost its connection. It's still floating there, but it's taken after months and months or years of expansion, contraction, you finally see the damage, the oxidation, and the detachment.
Yeah, same idea as this. If you do this 5,000 times, eventually it's going to just wear out and not be able to.
4 of these together and kept it'll break.
It'll start to break. All right, so on that note, the last concept that I wanted to, again, that I dreamt about me wanting to know 20 years ago to change my entire career and shorten it in terms of like making all these mistakes is the big one. I call it the detailer's oath, or changing your mindset. So as we talked about at length, there's this mentality, all of us, that, I love your example. You grab all your bags, you're like, all right, I'm ready to attack the paint. I'm ready to go. You drop them all down.
Drop it, boom, it opens up, the lights come up, and you got your buffer, and you're going to
put your glasses on.
You're going to devastate the defects, right? You're going to dominate and devastate the defects, and that's not my mindset, and that's not the typical professional detailer's mindset.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I go like, oh man, we're going to have to.
That's what I
we're
walk
gonna have
in.
to
I look
touch
at a
this.
car and say, you know, unfortunately, I'm going to have to polish this.
Right.
It's more of that mindset. I don't want to, you know, I want to tiptoe and don't wake the baby.
Yeah,
I want to see the baby, but don't wake the baby.
Right.
Same kind of mindset. My mindset is like, oh, I'm going to knock this out of the park. It's just like, wow, it's too bad. So we're always trying to look to do the least amount of work to get the maximum effect.
Again, the doctor analogy is the Hippocratic Oath. We have our detailer's oath. We're doing no harm to it. Kind of slow down, rethink, retrain yourself to not immediately go and start chewing up the paint. Because sometimes you get into you know, a car and you know, you go through all your tests and you look at it and you say, hey, I don't think we can repair this without jeopardizing the integrity of the clear coat. There's just not enough for me to do.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to, you know, we're going to have to put this thing on life support and kind of
We'll do a fine
do
little
the best
polish
we possibly
and
can.
just smooth that out, and then
Right.
we add a protective layer of a wax or
Right.
polymer.
Live
or
to
coating
fight
or
another
something.
day. And so that mental restraint, I think, is huge.
It's huge because what we'll be teaching is minimal amounts of liquid or finer, slower removing liquids and less passes and less everything. You know, we're
Right.
trying to just go very conservative in our approach towards restoring the beauty of the paint.
That's it for episode 201. On to chapter 202, which is the top 15 types of paint damage. Now, if you have any questions or suggestions or things you want to see in the next training episode, email us at training@ammonyc.com. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.